The coronavirus could cost Auckland University tens of millions of dollars, with thousands of its international students stuck in China after New Zealand closed its borders to them. The Varsity says it wasn't consulted about the travel ban. That means any foreign travellers leaving or passing through mainland China cannot enter New Zealand. It also claims it's been given no justification for the ban. Auckland University Vice Chancellor Professor Stuart McCutcheon says he wants an explanation from the government and some assurances around student visas.
We have about 4,000 students from China. Currently, our best estimate is that something in the order of nearly 3,000 of them will be affected by the ban. We don't know exactly because we're not quite sure who arrived before the ban and who's still in China, but probably 3,000 out of our 4,000 would potentially be affected.
A lot of students. So what kind of plans are you making to accommodate them remotely?
Well, we're trying to contact all of those students. Obviously, we're giving information about the coronavirus problem generally to all of our students. We're trying to contact those who are still in China to get them to give us a contact point so we can work with them around their needs. The big issue for us, of course, is that the timing of the ban, which came completely out of the blue, there was no consultation, we knew nothing about it. We're in a situation where our students would be coming to campus normally over the next few weeks to start semester at the beginning of March. And so the issue for us is we don't know how long the ban will go on. We don't know the basis for the ban. We don't know the justification for it. Of course, some countries have introduced travel bans, others haven't. And so the question for us then is how do we support those students while they are still in China and try to ensure that the impact on their studies is minimised and that we don't do any more damage to those studies than is absolutely necessary during this year.
Are you unhappy with the way this has been handled? You said no consultation with you about it and you're still unclear as to why there is a ban. Are you disappointed with the way it's been handled?
Well, I'm concerned that it came completely out of the blue. There was no consultation with the universities. We rely on the international student market very considerably. And a number of countries have introduced bans, the US and Australia, but as I understand it, places like the UK and Canada haven't. And the World Health Organisation's advice was that travel bans are not going to prevent the spread of the virus. So to get it completely out of the blue is a problem for us, but now, of course, we're focused on how we deal with the consequences. We don't know the basis on which the ban will be lifted. We don't know when it's likely to be lifted. And so that, of course, makes planning very difficult when we're going to potentially have to teach 3,000 students offshore in a situation where we've never had to do that before.
It must be hurting you financially or have the potential to.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, the New Zealand funding model is such that New Zealand universities, most of their operation is to do with domestic students and research. And funding in that way is constrained to a level which means that we essentially break even on our domestic operation. And what operating surplus we do make as institutions comes from the international business where we set our own prices. So 4,000 Chinese students represents nearly half of our total student body. The 3,000 that are unable to travel represents about a third of our international student body. And so it's a huge problem for us financially. But our first
How much money do they represent in terms of fees?
Oh, there would be tens of millions of dollars. I don't know the exact numbers because without knowing which students they are and what courses they're taking and what the fees are, but it's certainly tens of millions of dollars. But as I say, our main concern at the moment is to ensure that those students are disadvantaged as little as possible because we have an obligation to their academic success, and that's what we're focusing on at present.
Because, as you point out, the length of the ban is unknown, it could be a possibility that some of these students pull out of your courses. So would you give them refunds?
Oh, well, of course. I mean, we're not going to charge students for things they haven't received. And the longer the ban goes on and the more uncertainty there is about it, the greater is that risk. And we accept that that's likely in the case of some students. A significant proportion of these students, though, are already in our program, so they are returning students who studied here last year, went home over the summer break and are now caught in China. we would hope that they will continue to study with us and that we can give them the support, that we can distance teach where possible. We may have to defer classes until they do arrive. We may have to give them added support, but we would hope to keep them in our programs because that's in their best interests, as well as obviously being in our best interests.
Virologists that we've spoken to say this is a long-haul problem. It's going to continue for some months. Given that possibility and how important these international students are to you, are you going to need to look to the government for a top-up? Will you be talking to them about that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're autonomous institutions and we manage our own operations, and I would expect that we would continue to do that. I don't think the government will be in the business of subsidising organisations that have lost out because of the travel ban, either in the public or private sectors. What I would like from the government is a couple of things. One is I'd like more flexibility around visa issues. I'd like the government to be working with us to make it easy for students to defer their studies if that's what they have to do and not have to reapply for visas and these sorts of things. And I'd also like clarity around why the travel ban was introduced and particularly what the circumstances are that would cause it to be lifted, because the ban itself is a problem, but the uncertainty about how long it's going to continue and what impact it will have on our students is an even greater problem.
Have you written to the Minister about this, or have you had a conversation?
The universities are in contact with the government, so the Chief Executive of Universities New Zealand and one of the Vice Chancellors are meeting with officials today, and we are at the moment answering some questions that we've had from the government, which I understand they'll be using to help them think about the problem. But we'll be certainly making our views about the impact of uncertainty known to government, absolutely.